there, moguls. It's me, Marshall Silver, your personal millionaire maker. Getting very excited about my brand new show, 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. I'm going to broadcast live to you. In the first hour of the broadcast, I'm going to give you content, information for better sex, more money, emotional, mental, physical, and even spiritual power. I'll also invite some of my cool multi-millionaire and billionaire friends onto the show to give you more direction, more advice, more strategies and gambits for having it all. The second hour is what I'm most excited about. It's when I get a chance to chat with you. Yes, you. Where you can call in, talk to me, ask me questions. And if you say the secret word of the day, you could win $5,000 cash. At the very least, if you're the most interesting call of the day, you could also win 10 ounces of freshly minted Marshall Silver 999 Fine Silver. All of that and more. Brand new Mercedes-Benz sedan or SUV up for grabs. My personal Rolls-Royce Phantom up for grabs. All the knowledge to get everything you want and so much more. All you got to do is log in to the show to get information about its release coming up. 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, coming to you live from the bunker right here at Studio Money. I'm Marshall Silver, your personal millionaire.
Let me bring in our hypnotist, Marshall Silver.
It's Marshall Silver, ladies and gentlemen, the world's fastest hypnotist.
Hello there, and welcome home to this edition of Marshall Silver Live. I'm excited today because you're here, and I'm excited because my intention is to bless your life in a big way. My life has certainly been blessed. I'm a grateful man. I had an amazing mother. I have just absolutely astounding siblings, and as you know, I've got a perfect wife and beyond perfect children. So my life is blessed. The only thing that makes it any better are the amazing friends and teammates that I have that help us produce this show and bring it to you. You know, communication equals wealth. What does that mean? The better you communicate, the more you'll get in your life in every single area. You communicate in two ways and two ways only. You communicate internally, 1,500 words per minute, going through your brain, telling you who you are and who you aren't, what you can be, what you can do, what you can have. Communication to the outside world is called influence. Everything that you want that you don't have, you're going to get from other people. And so your ability to communicate effectively to the outside world will determine how the world echoes back and reflects on you. You hear me say this all the time on this show. You are one idea away from $1 billion. And I had an epiphany yesterday, and it had to do with some things going on in the world. I look back, my first mentor, as you know, was a man named Chuck Martinez, who when I was 17, I was working for him. He had two kinds of stores. He had a magic shop and he had a costume store. Magic shops, they do okay. Magicians come in. Because we were the only magic shop in town, it did all right. It didn't do huge numbers. It did all right, enough to maybe feed a couple of people, but not a whole lot. The costume store, on the other hand, didn't do huge for 50 weeks out of the year. 2 weeks out of the year, the 2 weeks right before Halloween, it was slammed. You couldn't get into the space. You couldn't walk into the retail store. The rest of the year, though, completely dead. Some Santa Claus costumes in December, some rabbit costumes in April, March for Easter, but that was it. So the entire business relied on thriving and doing well during those 2 weeks because that was how Halloween was celebrated. Back in my day, you would go to a costume store, you'd rent your costume for 2 or 3 days, go be a gorilla or a pirate or whatever you were going to be, then take the costume back. That was the model. My boss, Chuck Martinez, when I met him, I was 14 when I started working full time for him. He had, during the Christmas season, kiosks, carts. He was one of the first people to do this concept. He had kiosks or carts at the Sears store where I would go back and I would demonstrate magic tricks, demonstrate magic kits, and sell these magic sets to people to give to their kids for Christmas. He also obviously had the costume store. And one season, he went to the Sears store and said, "Hey, I'd like you to buy these Star Wars masks." I remember them, C-3PO, Darth Vader, Chewbacca, these very, very high-end, very cool masks. And the buyer for for Sears, another story. The buyer for Sears said he couldn't buy the masks because they were too expensive, and if they didn't sell, they'd be stuck in the warehouse for the year. And he wasn't wrong. My mentor, Chuck Martinez, said, I know that your garden department closes at the end of September because there's no gardening going on during the fall winter season. He said, since it's closing and everything's being cleared out of there in the beginning of October, how about I just rent the space where the garden shop was for the month of October? We did. In the first year, modest numbers because nobody knew to look for anything there. In the first year, though, we did $150,000 in sales. $150,000 doesn't seem like a lot. The cost of goods was $15,000. It was 1,000% markup. So, needless to say, there was profitability there. I don't know exactly. I don't know what the split with Sears was, but I knew it was profitable. The next year, we had 15 stores. So even if the profitability was only $50,000, which it probably was, the next year we had 15 stores. So that's $750,000 in profit for that season. The next year we had almost 200 stores. The next year 450, the next year 1500, and so on. Now that is how Halloween is celebrated. Spirit, Halloween shops, Masquerade, any number of stores all around the world that pop up during the month of October in these empty big boxes, stores that didn't have a tenant, and they rent them for the month, probably at a premium, but they rent them for a month. And my boss, I watched him go from basically struggling to having tens of millions of dollars in net worth. And it made me be absolutely certain that one idea can change our lives. Back in 1994, I was watching a guy named Tony Robbins do an infomercial called Personal Power. And I did some research. They were doing $3 million every single month in sales, which is a lot of money, $36 million a year. There was also another infomercial running at the same time with a woman named Dionne Warwick. Dionne Warwick had an infomercial called the Psychic Friends Network, where for $2.99, you could talk to a psychic for a minute and ask, does he love me? Well, a little bit of research showed me that show at $2.99 a minute was doing $1 million a day, $30 million every single month. Crazy numbers, just crazy numbers. And I said, you know what? I think there's a product halfway between the two. I think there's a product that has personal development, but also has the magic of the Psychic Friends Network, the personal development of Tony Robbins, Personal Power, and Dionne Warwick's Psychic Friends Network. And I created a show called Passion, Profit, and Power. The premise of the infomercial was that you could not only learn skills to have a better life, that I would show you how to reprogram your brain, which I do on a subconscious level, to not learn to actually become someone new. So when people ask me, how are you different than Tony Robbins or T. Harv Eker, Grant Cardone, Dean Graziosi? The answer is really simple. I am the leading authority in the world on subconscious reprogramming, how to get in your head, make you think different, make you more calm, make you more confident, make you more happy, make you more creative, make you smarter, literally program you to think like a genius, all the above. And the product, when I came up with Passion, Profit, and Power, the infomercial, the idea made me $120 million in the first year. $120 million in the first year. We were doing $10 million every single month. And the infomercial ended up running for about 3 years, did over $250 million in sales on an idea that cost me $10,000 to execute. So right now, you are one idea away from $1 billion. What's the idea? I went to the doctor. As you know, I had PRP done to my knees, I had injections done to my knees a couple of weeks ago. They said it's going to be about a month before I'm going to see any real results from the stem cell or PRP therapy. I went to see the doctor, though, for my checkup. And he said, I said, can you give me any other insights on how to help my knees? And he said, don't eat anything fatty. And I said, what do you mean? Like, sweets or candy or stuff like that? He said, no. What I said was, don't eat anything fatty. Don't eat anything, man. I didn't think that was very good bedside manner. I was wearing my glasses at the time. He said, why do you wear the glasses? I said, for math. He said, you don't wear them for reading? I said, no, I wear them for division. But bum. Tough crowd in here today. That's all I can say. Better get to the guest quick. Hey, on today's show, I'm really excited. We've got a guest who is going to show you the intricate world of real estate financing with Arjun Dhingra. And he's a distinguished mortgage banker, a financial strategist. Arjun has carved a niche for himself by combining traditional lending practices with cutting edge financial techniques, helping clients navigate the complexities of real estate investments to build substantial wealth. Today, listeners are going to learn about personal finance, real estate investing, career growth in the financial sector. Arjun's experience and advice is invaluable. He's going to offer insights into effective mortgage planning, risk management, and how to capitalize on investment opportunities in today's marketplace. Please, with a nice big Marshall Silver live welcome in the chat, welcome Arjun Dhingra to the show. Welcome, Arjun.
Thanks, Marshall. I appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you being patient with me there too, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, no worries, man. Life is good. And am I butchering your name or am I coming close?
You're pretty darn close. It's Arjun Dhingra. Yeah, you got it right. You pretty much
Arjun
got it.
Dhingra. And you know what? Monsi said it was Arjun, and then they hesitated. They weren't sure, and so got it now. Arjun.
All right.
Where are you calling in from, brother?
I'm in San Francisco. So it's good to be on with you, man. A real pleasure and honor. Big fan.
Oh, always awesome to be with you too. So talk to me about your business. What's the name of your company?
So I'm with a company called All Western Mortgage. It's the largest privately owned bank in the state of Nevada. And let's see, what else can I get you on that? I've been in the industry for about 23 years, and my background actually, which is a little more interesting than being in mortgage and personal finances, that I competed for Team USA for the national taekwondo team, and then I coached Team USA for a good 10 years. But I've done martial arts since I was 8. So it's been probably the longest committed relationship of my life, I could say. But I am really passionate about moving people from one place to another, influencing change in them, whether it's in this space of renter to owner or saver to investor, or in my coaching life from aspiring athlete to, eventual world champion, or someone that has, a whole different pathway in front of them because of what they were able to achieve.
So you were obviously heavily involved with martial arts, which, by the way, they named them after me. I just want to be clear. And then you got into mortgage. What made you get into mortgage of all things?
I mean, it was, Marshall, nobody seeks this career. It just kind of finds you by accident, or you stumble into it, or you may not have a choice. I essentially fell into it my senior year of college. I was, at the University of Nevada, Reno in 2001. And I had some buddies that had dropped out of school, and they were making so much money that I thought they were dealing drugs. And they were living in Vegas at the time. I was up in Reno. They dropped out of school in Reno, moved back home to Vegas. I went to visit one of them for his birthday. He picks me up in an Escalade, and he was wearing a suit, and he had a Bluetooth earpiece in, if you remember those from back in the day, the ones that probably gave you brain cancer, which is why they're not really around anymore. And he was talking a million miles an hour. I was like, dude, what are you doing, man? Are you doing drugs down here or what? And he goes, no, I'm doing mortgages. I said, I don't even know what that is, but I want to do it too. And so he needed help in Reno. My brother and I started assisting him, and another business partner that was in my fraternity as well. And the next thing I know, we emptied out our accounts to sign a lease on an office. Hadn't even graduated school yet. Started running a call center with all the pledges from our fraternity that would work the phones at night, and we'd order pizza in for them. And it was a lot of fun. Lots of ups and downs, great learning experiences. Obviously the market crash of 08, 09, and then coming out of it the other side, and, still in it, but now, a totally different mission and purpose with it. But that's how I ended up in the industry, man.
Very cool. And obviously the economy is cyclical. I remember when the economy started dipping back in 08, 09. Uh, and a lot of people were severely hurt. People were hurt
Yeah.
again in 2012. Never quite recovered. People were still having a hard time in 2012. What do you say to people that get freaked out about the economy going up and down? And what's your explanation when somebody comes to you and says, "Oh, I can't do it right now. The economy is doing so poorly." Right now, obviously, we have substantially higher interest rates. I'm looking at
Yeah.
refinancing a home in Vegas. I've got excellent credit, above 800. I've got substantial assets, and yet even me, my current mortgage is 3 point change, and any new loan I get is going to be 7 point change. So
Maybe
right
higher.
now it's kind of an odd time for anybody to want to refinance their home. So if you've got millions of dollars in equity like we do, it's kind of
Yeah.
almost stuck unless we just say, you know what, I surrender, going to take the higher interest rate. What do you say to people right now with the economy the way that it is?
Well, in that particular case, Marshall, I'll tell you, lines of credit are the strategic way for people that are exactly in your shoes, that have a great, attractive mortgage that they just don't want to get out of, which I cannot blame you for. Attaching a line of credit if you're trying to put that equity to use because you have millions of dollars sitting there and it's not doing anything for you. And with inflation being where it's at, it's actually kind of eroding. So the smart play, I tell people, and you don't have to be a smart person to do this. It's just a smart money move, is to find a way to leverage the house or take some equity out of it, as long as you're going to do something responsible and thought out in terms of another investment. So if you're pulling out the money to invest in more real estate, to start a business, put the money into your business, pay off debts, whatever it might be, that's a good way to do it, is to attach a line of credit to it so you don't have to affect your mortgage. So that's my advice for you, Marshall, in that situation. But for the general
Sorry, are you
public,
talking about a HELOC? Is that what you're talking about?
yes, yeah, a line of credit, an actual home equity line of credit. These have become really, really popular again in the last year. And yes, the interest rates on them are high as well. The payments on them tend to be reasonable because they're interest-only payments. But mortgage rates are cyclical, just like the economy is cyclical. And this ties it back to your bigger picture question of what do you tell people? First and foremost, I tell people, look, that in terms of getting freaked out, challenging times in an economy, whether this is your first kind of stormy weather that you're dealing with, or you've been through a few cycles, then you should know they're never a matter of if they happen. It's a matter of when. Things go up, things go down. You always want to be prepared. And you want to start getting most prepared when things are really good, because that just means that the music could stop at any given point. In 07, 08, it was for those that were around and had real estate at the time, or any, even a small business, whatever, it was an abrupt stoppage of the music. Like the record actually, just the needle got pulled off the record. You heard the scratch and it was like that, like almost like you woke up and everything was different. And it stayed quite different, to your point, for several years. It took some people 4 or 5 years, maybe more, to actually recover and get out of it. This current cycle that we're in, it kind of phased in. It caught some people by surprise. It happened because of one dirty word, which is called inflation. Inflation was ignored for a really long time. It was kind of dismissed. And the term that was being used was that it's transitory, which means it's just kind of here temporarily and then it's going to leave. It's a guest that's sticking around just for dinner, but it's going to leave right after. But this guest ended up actually staying and is now basically squatting in all of our homes, if you will, to use the real estate analogy of squatting. It hasn't left. It's been 2 years and inflation has been really stubborn and really sticky, and it's just not quite going away. Excuse me. So what I tell clients is, in order to prepare for inflationary periods, because they're going to happen whenever we get a lot of money going into the system. And the definition for people that are listening, just so you understand what inflation is, really simple. This is like kindergarten economics, I like to say, because I like to talk in those terms so that everyone can understand it. I don't like using big words or speaking over people, because that's not me. I need to be talked to on a certain level, so I try and extend the same courtesy. Inflation, by definition,
my audience is just bright 7-year-olds, by the way.
Fantastic. Okay, I thought it was 5-year-olds, so we're actually doing better today. So okay,
no, they're just bright 7-year-olds, but they're
right,
good people.
My favorite people. Inflation, by definition, guys, is just too many dollars chasing too few things. Okay, that's it. So if we talk about inflation in a certain sector of the economy, like housing, we have too many dollars chasing too few houses because money was really cheap and people had money to spend. You could borrow it cheap. Interest rates were low. You only have so many houses. So we have tight inventory. We have what's called an inventory crisis going on in the United States. So it runs up the price, and the prices get so hot that they're considered inflationary. So this can happen with anything. If you think back to COVID, this is a funny analogy. The price of toilet paper went through the roof. Why? Because everybody was quite foolishly lining up at the stores to start buying toilet paper and bandwagon. We can talk about bandwagoning as a separate thing because that didn't turn out to be such a good idea, but it's the same analogy. Too many people with too many dollars chasing too few goods. That's where you get inflation. So we're in an inflationary period now. The way to survive inflation is to cut your costs and things that you're spending money on that you don't need to spend money on. Preserve the dollars that you have because they now have less buying power. If $1 used to buy you $1 worth of goods and services before, with inflation now, maybe the $1 is only buying you 80 cents or 85 cents worth of stuff. So it costs more to get, if you're lucky, it costs more to get things done. And we have inflation everywhere, right? Like at the pump, putting gas in your car, groceries, food inflation, insurance is much, much higher. Service fees for certain things are so much higher. Like it's everywhere. And sadly, guys, it's not going to go away overnight. It's going to take a while. I think we need to kind of sit with it here for at least the duration of this year and probably see what happens into 2025 before we get potentially a different direction on it. So knowing that it's here to stay, you want to get your financial house in order if you haven't done so already. Cut expenses on things that you don't need to be spending money on. And then find ways, because the most beautiful thing that we have in this economy compared to previous economic cycles here in the United States is the gig economy. If you want to just increase your output and hustle, you can make money. It's just literally correlated to your output. And, you know, whether it's driving Uber or finding jobs where your talents and services, you know, can be advertised online. Like if you're really good with graphics design, or you're really good at editing letters, editing emails, editing whatever it might be. There's so many websites where you can just say, hey, I'm happy to do this for people, and you can actually earn money. These are just a few examples. But the point I'm making is the last market crash of 08, there was no such thing as a gig economy, really. And if there was, it wasn't really well known. But there are always ways in which you can make money. So increase income where you can, find ways to create additional streams of income, cut dumb spending and foolish spending that you don't need to be making, and find ways to invest these dollars that you accumulate into things that are going to earn you money and not take away from you. But that's the long and short of it there, my friend Marshall.
So invest in income generating assets.
Yes.
Things that can actually make you money as opposed to things that cost you money. I believe that one of the things that people have to stop and take a look at is how can the things that I want make me money? And I think that that's the bigger challenge. You know, I have a 17,000 square foot home in Las Vegas, and it's stellar. It's beautiful. We call it Prosperity Palace, and we hold events there. We hold smaller masterminds there. And so I get the house basically for free because the house assists me in generating revenue.
Right.
Different line of questioning, different conversation. Obviously in 08, the economy started shifting. Got toward the end of 11, bit of a recovery, not complete. But then in 12, it took a deeper dip and stayed pretty low till about 16, 17, 18, 19. Economy is actually doing pretty good. Interest rates low, gas prices low, everything's booming. And then in 2020, things started to crash again. So my question to you, and I see you grinning already, my question to you is what was going on in, I don't know, 08, 2012, 2020 that caused the economy, in your opinion, to have challenges?
Well, I think, you know, in 08, 09, we had a banking crisis that effectively got started because housing started to go into such decline, and housing was carrying the economy. Like housing was such a huge percentage. I don't know the exact number for you, but just imagine
and
that
do you think it was artificially carrying the economy?
I think it was, and you say artificially not because it's manipulative. You say artificially because there was just too many eggs in one basket. It was just
crowd force. People buying properties for more than they're worth.
Totally, you know, and everybody was just frenzying. Imagine the whole toilet paper analogy I gave you earlier, but it was actually happening with real estate. And there was no real checks and balances in terms of how people were acquiring the real estate. It's not that buying real estate was a bad move. It's just there was way too many people that probably shouldn't be buying real estate, that didn't understand the seriousness of it or the responsibility that's tied to it, that were doing so without any skin in the game. So it made it very easy for them, whether you agree with it or not. You know, it's not a moral. The moral discussion is for later, or it's already passed. We don't need to discuss it. But people were just like, well, I didn't have to put anything into that, so it's not really worth anything. Why am I going to continue paying for it? And it's hard to argue with that, especially if you've never handled such an asset before in your life and you don't understand the consequences of it, or that it's going to wreck your credit, or that there might be bigger picture implications here, which is that if enough of us keep doing this, we're actually going to cause banks to fail, and there's going to be a massive negative ripple effect through the economy. It started much further back than that, with the deregulation of banks and a policy that was out, within Washington, D.C., that they wanted everyone, as many people as possible, to be homeowners if they wanted to. And that was a very noble and great thing for society at the time. But it was just paired with a little bit too much of a frenzy, fast and easy money, and really no checks and balances behind it or repercussions that could actually hold the line. So that's what ultimately
you're in the business. And so
Yeah.
this is a direct question.
Yeah.
My belief is that a whole lot of people that never should have been given home loans, mortgages, were being given mortgages. And in due respect, my belief is the banks were predatory, that they knew some of those loans would go bad. But, if I'm a lender and I know that I can lend somebody money on an asset that they may put a substantial down payment into, and then frankly may end up defaulting, I win no matter what. I win because
Exactly
they took
right.
the loan out with me. All
That's
their
exactly
initial payments were purely interest. And then if
Yeah.
they default, they already down paid part of the mortgage, the value of the house. Now I can foreclose on an asset that has some value.
That's
So in
exactly
my
it.
opinion, that's kind of what was going on. What do you think?
It's 100%. Look, at the end of the day, the bank, part of the bank's underwriting, or their, criteria that they use when they look at approving somebody for a loan. And this isn't predatory in the sense that they're like being evil. They just look at it because they have to assume worst case scenario. If they're going to lend you money, and this is one of the greatest capital markets that exist in the entire free world, where you could put down 5% or 10%, and the bank will give you 90% of an asset. Like that's called leverage. And it's a great thing when it's done responsibly and you can use it to your advantage. But you have to remember, part of the criteria that a bank or a lender, whether they're private or institutional, uses when they issue you debt like this, issue you money in exchange for, holding the asset, is they ask the question, do we want to own this? Because they have to assume worst case scenario that they might have to own it one day. And in the example that you just pointed out, or you just painted, Marshall, if somebody puts down a substantial down payment, it's an asset in a very fast appreciating market, almost hyper appreciation. They're thinking, yeah, we'll do this all day. Not that we're hoping you default, but we're not going to be mad if you do, because we're glad to take this asset and then do something else with it and put it on the open market and actually profit from it, because there'll be another buyer for it, or we hold it on our books because it's worth a lot and you just defaulted on the loan. They're happy to keep collecting your interest payments. So as long as you all hold up your end of the bargain, they're happy. They're collecting money from you. You're happy. You've got an asset that's appreciating. But in the case that we had there, where people were defaulting, the banks were winning. And many of the banks, even though they were in trouble, they were actually still being paid because they had insurance to cover a lot of these defaults. So they were getting bailed out by the federal government. So it's almost like they were double dipping in insurance, if you will. Like they had two backstops for them. They had the government and they had insurance. So that's where, banks got a bit of a predatory tag attached to them, and it's a deeper discussion. But, bringing it back to your question there, Marshall, absolutely. That's a bank's motivation when they lend you money is, and they ask themselves, do we want to own this? Is this something we would want? Because they have to plan for worst case, which is that you might default on this place. And if you do, would they want it on their books? Is this something they're going to want? Because if it's not, they're not going to lend on it unless you just really change the terms in the bank's favor, to where you're putting down so much money or you're paying such high interest that they still find a way to win on that deal. So that's the way banking works. Whether it lands positively with people or not, that's the way banking works.
What is your thought on a bird in the hand versus equity in a home? Right now, there's a lot of people, Grant Cardone and quite a few other people, who believe that there's no real benefit in owning your own home. Certainly, huge benefit in owning real estate, but as
Yeah.
far as the place, your domicile, no real benefit in owning your domicile. I have an opinion on this. I'm wondering what yours is.
Look, I think and I respect Grant Cardone a lot, and I understand what he's saying. I think there's a level of sophistication to interpret that. It's funny because we were actually just having this conversation with my media team yesterday, because we were going to take some of these videos that Grant's been putting out, which he seems to be doing a lot more of as of late. I don't know if he's trying to ruffle some feathers or whatever it might be. He's just a lot more opinionated about it. And again, I respect the empire that he's built and the
No,
fact
he's
that
just trying to get everybody to pull their equity out and invest it with him. That's all he's doing.
that's right. That is what he's doing. There is a motivation there, but it's not all that. It may not be all that negatively intentioned, because, and what Grant is basically telling people, to recap it, is that, look, buying a house for yourself, unless you plan on staying there for a really, really long time, and he doesn't even say that part, but that's the truth. The asterisk to his statement, he's basically saying, don't buy a house, continue renting. The money you got, you should invest it into real estate, whether it's into a fund where they're actually doing the work for you, which is never a bad thing, especially if you're not particularly experienced with managing property or evaluating assets and really working through how a deal either works or doesn't work. These are great ways to pull money together. And as long as you're dealing with somebody, I mean, there's no guarantees on anything ever. Nothing's 100%. But as long as you're working with a place such as Grant and his fund that have a good track record, you might earn a very good rate of return. And this is a good way to actually earn money in the long run. And it's just part of what should be an investment strategy. It doesn't have to be everything that you're doing. So he's saying, rather than put money into your own house and owning a home, you should be investing either into funds like his, or buying apartments, or partnering up with other people to buy rental homes, because there's so many other tax advantages that actually come into play in your favor if you use the tax code in the way that it's meant to. Because the tax code that's out there in the US, a lot of people think the tax code is trying to screw me. The tax code, if you can actually understand it and navigate your way through it, is actually there in the United States to help you make money and do better. But it's just so complicated, and most people don't have the means or the wherewithal or the patience to go through it and deal with it, that they don't take full advantage of it. But when everyone's being demonized, oh, this person pays so little in tax, or Grant Cardone's doing this or that, they're not evil people. They're actually just able to interpret and navigate through the US tax code and make it work for them, because it is designed to actually work for you if you want to be able to do that work. So bringing it back here full circle.
And I want to interject, Arjun, I want to just interject real quickly,
please,
so people can comprehend and understand why that is. The government's not our friend. The tax code is not written for our benefit. And so our job is to figure out, how do we take something that wasn't written for our benefit and use it to our benefit? You know, my main residence is in Las Vegas. My second home is on the beach in San Diego. The reason my main residence is in Las Vegas is there's no state tax in Nevada.
That's right.
And so with the money that I save on just state tax, not even federal, not even in the question, with the amount of money I save on state tax, I can pay for my house in Vegas, pay for my home in California, and have a private jet to go back and forth between the two properties with money left over at the end of the day. And so what I tell people is the tax code is written to keep your money in play. That the government wants you to keep reinvesting into your business as much as you can, because eventually you're going to have to pay taxes. Eventually, at some point, they're going to get their fingers on it, and they would just assume the pie was as big as it could possibly be. So if people want to understand, that's what the basis of the tax code is keep your money in play, keep not avoiding it, just keep deferring it. And if you keep deferring it and deferring it and deferring it, then you have a bigger and bigger and bigger ball to play with. And so if you end up giving away a portion of that ball at the end of the day, it still leaves you with a bigger ball than had you given a portion away in the beginning. So I said it out loud.
No, so, it's exactly right. And I appreciate you saying that, because I'm from Nevada originally. I still have my Nevada driver's license. I grew up in Reno. That's where I'm from. And for the longest time, I still maintained a primary residence in Nevada for the exact same purposes you did. Now I live in the Bay Area, and I had to actually switch residence, although I'm not giving up my Nevada driver's license. That's just too much of my heart is still in Nevada, and I'm always going to be a Nevada guy. And one of these days, I'm going to figure out a way to reestablish residency over there, because, yes, to your point, the entire tax code is set up that if you do take advantage of it, you just keep the money in play and keep everyone's hands out of it. And if you can keep deferring, keep rolling into things and finding ways to actually earn some passive income or pull money out that is tax-free while going along the way. And for some people, they never end up ultimately pulling it out because they don't want the government to ever be able to touch it. That's why they set up means of trying to protect it, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Trusts and 1031 exchanges and all sorts of vehicles and leverage tools.
Yeah, exactly.
So right now, tell me about your business. Tell me, what's the majority of your business? Are you doing commercial loans? Are you doing residential? What's the majority?
We do all residential stuff, and people think, and there's a false premise out there that when rates are high, it's a bad market, and when rates are low, it's somehow indicative of a good market. it tends to be a little bit of the opposite. It's not that there's any perfect market or hot. You just have bandwagoning that goes on in one extreme. And in the other extreme, you get people that are basically operating with a high degree of fear or skepticism because of what's going on. But if we look back to the COVID market, where interest rates were at historical all-time lows, there was nothing healthy or good about that market. Homes were being sold without even being looked at. You had lines out the door. People here in the Bay Area were paying $1.5 million, in some cases up to $2 million over the asking price because they wanted the house that bad and they had that much money sitting around to just throw it. There's nothing healthy or good about that market. And because mortgage rates and interest rates in general were kept artificially low for so long, that's why we have the problem that we have in housing, where people are locked in, to your point, you're in your classic case example with a very, very low rate. Doesn't make much sense to go or do anything. I'm not going to restructure this debt. So for us, recognizing that that's most of the landscape of the United States, because we lend in pretty much the majority of states that are out there, but predominantly on the West Coast. A lot of the mortgages that we're doing right now for people, believe it or not, we're doing a lot of refinance business, but it's all strategic refinance. And here's what I mean by that. Somebody like in the example that you painted earlier that might have a 3 or 4% rate on their home, they're sitting on a lot of equity because the homeowner in the United States, unlike the homeowner of 2007, is sitting on a lot more equity, and they are very well qualified to continue making the payments they're making. That's why this housing market is categorically different from 08. The health of the U.S. homeowner is very different in terms of their credit and their financial standing, irrespective of what's going on with inflation. And the equity they're sitting on is so vast that even if they did have to sell their home, they're not going to like do a short sale on it or throw it on the open market at a huge loss. They're still going to come away with something. So recognizing that people are sitting on a lot of equity that's not doing anything for them. Credit card debt in the United States just topped $1 trillion a few months ago. Credit card delinquencies and auto loan delinquencies are also up. This is a little bit of a troubling sign for people that watch the economy to try and track what's going on with the everyday U.S. consumer. Noticing that and knowing that for most every American in the United States, their home is their largest asset. And that's a great thing. They're sitting on equity that's not doing anything. So abandoning a 3 or 4% rate in exchange for, say, a 7% as an example, but we wiped out 2 credit cards that have interest rates over 22%, an auto loan that has a rate of 13%, a personal line of credit that's got more debt on it as well, that's carrying near double-digit interest. What I call it is what's called a household blended rate, an HBL. Most people think that their interest rate is just their mortgage, but your household blended rate, there's a formula for doing it, is actually taking all of the debts you have, including the student loans that President Biden forgot to forgive. I joke about that, right? Because he's forgiven a lot, but a lot of people are still stuck with them. So whatever the case is, you got interest on that. You got interest on credit cards. You got interest on personal loans. Maybe you have a HELOC on the house. Maybe you have equipment loans for either your business. Maybe you have a loan for a jet ski or a boat. None of these interest rates are cheap, and a lot of them have moved in conjunction with every time the Fed has moved rates over the last few years. So what we're doing a lot of is we're looking at that whole picture and saying, actually, sir or ma'am, your interest rate is not 4%, which is on your mortgage. Your household blended rate is actually upwards of 8.5%. That's a very high rate when we factor in all these debts. You're sitting on a lot of equity. If we combine all of this and do one new mortgage to where at least you've got some tax benefits, right, of having it wrapped into your mortgage because of the interest being deductible, depending on how you do your taxes, we will eliminate all this debt at high interest, wrap everything into a 7% rate, for example. And now in many cases, in fact, in all cases, the total monthly outflows, when we add up all the bills you had compared to now what this new one bill is, one mortgage, no more outside debts, the savings are monumental. And for people that argue and say, well, now it's going to take me longer to pay off my house, the rebuttal I have for you on that is take that savings and put it right back towards the mortgage. If paying down your house is a big priority of yours, for some people it is, for others it's not. It's just a personal preference and how you actually run your finances and what your outlook or strategy is. You can put that money towards it and actually probably in all cases, and I can show people these formulas, pay off the house faster with the higher interest rate, but taking all the monthly savings now and putting it all back towards the mortgage than you would have if you had kept your 4%, but still be carrying all of that debt. So that's one type of strategic financial planning or recalibration of people's debts and finances that we're doing a lot of right now, irrespective of the fact that rates are high. We also know that people's debt loads are high. So we're doing this for people. And then people continue buying homes. Life doesn't stop simply because mortgage rates eclipse the 7% mark. When I got into the industry, they were at about 7.5% in 2001. I never knew that they might ever get that high. They certainly went higher than that. You know, there's been points where we hit a 25-year high back in October of last year where they were approaching or just even went above 8%. Certain products, they were even higher depending on what you're trying to do. But life keeps happening, right? People still get married. They get divorced. They upsize. They downsize. They lose their job. They have to relocate. And everyone needs shelter. Housing's never going out of style from that standpoint. So there is still movement going on out there where people are still moving, or they got to get into that school zone. You know, whatever the reason is, they don't put their life plans on hold simply because of rates. Now, rates are sensitive because it does affect affordability, no doubt. And I'm not dismissing that at all or trying to marginalize it. But for the vast majority of people that still need to get on with their life plans, the rates aren't going to stop them from doing it. And at the end of the day, I'll just close with this. You get one shot to negotiate the sales price and the terms of the home and maybe some concessions. And negotiating gets to happen now. It didn't happen. That was a word we couldn't use a few years ago. There was no negotiation going on. You had to pay the most ridiculous price to get a house. Now buyers and sellers actually sit down because sellers got to be at the table. Buyers have a little bit more leverage. The market's kind of finding a new cadence. So people put their heads together to come up with a better deal. But it's because of these higher rates. Higher rates give you the opportunity to do that because there's less competition and you get fear on the side of the sellers because they're worried you may not buy their house. Strike a better deal now. You'll have countless opportunities to restructure the debt or refinance or redo your actual mortgage during the lifetime you're in that house. You only get one shot to nail that sales price. And right now has been an amazing opportunity for people to do it because of high rates.
Talk to me about your own personal success in the last few minutes that we have together. Talk to me about what you think are the characteristics that have allowed you to have the success that you've had.
I'll tell you this, Marshall, it's talking to guys. I'm not just saying this because I'm on your show. It's talking to guys like you, successful entrepreneurs, people that are thought leaders that are around, lots of other smart people. I have spoken at a lot of events over the last few years. I've attended even more because I love going to events, conferences, experiences, things where I can learn and grow. And the thing that I've asked amongst so many successful people in terms of what are their traits or what separates people that are really continuing to grow and experience all kinds of progress in their life, financially, emotionally, spiritually, personally, whatever it is, they always get into the right rooms. They're always doing whatever they got to do to get to the event or get in that room, elbow their way in, whatever they got to do. So that's number one. I abide by this and swear by it. Number two, they are very committed to sharpening their craft and getting better each and every day. Everybody as an entrepreneur and as an individual has so much available to them. You have YouTube University, you have podcasts and shows such as this that are committed to helping people learn a little bit more and explore. There's so many ways to actually move the needle in your life. So just be committed to getting better. And then they never bitch about their circumstances. And that's something I really subscribe to. I never bitch about the market. I never bitch about what's going on with this or woe is me. There's opportunity in every market. I'm grateful that I live in this fantastic and amazing country where I can connect with people like you, connect with others, have the opportunity to share things and learn from others. It's endless. So it's all on how you look at it. But those three things: get in the right room, sharpen your craft, don't bitch about anything. And that's what I swear by. And that's my advice for everybody.
Yeah, we have a set of laws that I call martial law.
Yeah.
And it's strategies for living a better life. And the number one martial law: no whining, no complaining.
Thank you.
No, if there's something wrong in your life, don't tell me what's wrong in your life. Tell me what's right. Tell me how to get it right. If there's no way to get the thing that you're calling wrong right, then you got to surrender. There's nothing about it that's going to get better by your bitching or moaning or complaining. So stop it.
Yeah.
And, even with my kids, I tell them the same thing. They'll have a hard time. They'll throw a fit. I'll say, you will never get what you want by throwing a fit. You might get what you don't want. And I just think there's a lot of adults that need to hear that on a regular basis. Hey, Arjun, before we wrap up, how do people get a hold of you? And what kind of goodies might you give toward our audience?
Well, I'll tell you this. I love connecting and collaborating with people and helping them in any way I can, whether it's in personal growth, because we have a big online community. It's called the LFG Society. It's for entrepreneurs, marketers, thought leaders, just people that want to be better human beings and lift each other up. Or it's actually in the real estate space and helping people make better decisions around taking out mortgage debt. Connect with me on Instagram. My handle is right here on your show, Arjun Mortgage. I love interfacing with people this way, exchanging ideas and being out there to connect. And it's me that answers it. I don't have an assistant that does it. I actually answer and hold my phone. It's me on the account. It's not some bot or someone else. So please connect with me there. And I'm happy to help or contribute or listen or be part of anything that's going on out there, if it's part of your audience, Marshall.
Awesome. Arjun Dhingra, so glad to have you on the show. Thank you for your time. You are awesome. Yeah, put that back up there, Sterling. Put that, yeah, go ahead. So that people can check out his website.
Yeah,
You're totally loved.
that's our online community. Yeah.
You know, I train a lot of speakers and I teach a lot of people how to crush it from the stage and do what they do. That's the main focus of what I do. I know that you're a phenomenal speaker, a phenomenal
Oh,
trainer.
thanks, Mark. I
I
appreciate it, man.
believe I believe sales are the cornerstone of our economy, and I believe the next cornerstone is the housing industry and the mortgage industry, and that when it's thriving, the entire economy does well. And so, if sales are the cornerstone, when things are sold, that means we've got a thriving economy. And second to that is housing. Then I guess mortgage brokers and mortgage loan officers are indeed what drives the economy on any given day. So thanks so much for being with me. You're totally loved. Make it an awesome day, and I'll see you soon.
I appreciate you, Marshall. Thank you, brother.
Take care, my friend. Life is good. Hey, today I thought I'd do something a little bit different. We're going to take a look at Turning Point. We got one coming up in July in Las Vegas. I'd love to have you be my guest. I'm going to give away 3 pairs of tickets. To give you an idea of what Turning Point is, I'm going to show you a quick video, and then I'm going to come back and answer some of your email questions here live on the show. So right now, take a look. First 3 people to contact my office at 1-800-92-POWER are going to get two tickets, a pair of tickets. First 3 people, $3,000 a ticket, $6,000 value. The first 3 people who call 1-800-92-POWER right now to let you know what you're going to get. Take a look at this video.
Turning Point, a total change in direction for the better.
Who here is ready for a turning point? You absolutely have to have one. Put them high.
The 2-day Turning Point seminar is different than any other program in that it does more than just teach you the skills for your relationships, wealth, and power. It also programs you on a subconscious level to put those skills into immediate use.
This weekend is about empowerment. This weekend is about you understanding how to take charge of your own life.
You will learn total control of your thoughts and emotions, how to use PND, or psychoneural duplication, to take on the thoughts and actions of others to produce similar results. Whether it's losing weight, changing habits, being a millionaire.
When you think what a millionaire thinks and you do what a millionaire does, you'll produce similar results.
You will learn to program these powerful tools at a subconscious level for immediate and lasting results.
Your conscious mind is what's called your critical factor. It's the mind you're using right now to determine whether the information I'm giving to you will work for you or not. Your subconscious mind, on the other hand, is merely a computer. It's non-critical. It doesn't even have the ability to make judgment. So all trance, hypnosis, reprogramming is setting aside the critical factor of your conscious mind and non-critically accepting suggestions.
And empowering.
To make a fear vanish, you must experience it fully.
As it helps you create your life exactly the way you want it. Bring your family closer. Find the love of your life. Create strategies for wealth. Learn irresistible influence, and so much more. Because of the intimate nature of this course, seats are very limited. Register now before your life passes you by and there are no more turning points for you. Tens of thousands of people have learned this information and are using it daily.
You don't get angry if you get fired from your job and you know that within 2 years you will be a multi-millionaire.
It's your time.
There's a way for you to win this game that is different than how you're doing it, and it works.
It's your life.
When you learn how to do that, you become more powerful, and power is for use.
It's your turning point.
Welcome back. So glad to see you. First three people that go to call 1-800-92-POWER will get those free Turning Point tickets. Love to see you there. Talk to Anthony, Anthony Escamilla, and Anthony will get you set up. We get a lot of questions on the show. We get a lot of questions emailed in. I think people are a little bit afraid to ask their question live. So I thought I'd take 2-3 questions today from the emails that have come in and answer your questions. First question. Emily is a recent college grad with a passion for sustainable fashion. She's eager to start her own business. However, she's overwhelmed with the plethora of advice online and seeks a distilled list of critical success factors from experienced entrepreneurs. That's a mouthful. Here's her question. What key factors should every new entrepreneur consider when starting a business? Good question. What key factors should every new entrepreneur consider when starting a business? The first thing I say is, do you love it? I mean, would you do it for free? Because if you wouldn't do it for free, don't do it. Don't enter into a business that you wouldn't do whether you had $1 billion or not. And here's the reason. It's your baby. You're going to be spending a lot of time with it. And if you don't like your baby, you won't want to spend time with it. And the baby's going to suffer. Not you, the baby's going to suffer. So don't do that to your baby. The other thing that you should consider before you launch an online business is, do you have chickens that you can eat while you're hunting elephants? What do I mean by this? So many times people will just drop everything, launch a business from the ground up, and not have the means to eat, not have the means to generate enough revenue to survive. And so sometimes what you've got to do is eat chicken while you're hunting elephant. Find something that can be a temporary, at least cash cow, that can assist you in paying your bills while you're building that other business. And then finally, the last thing you should consider before you launch a business is it scalable and is it saleable? Is it scalable in the sense that you can figure out a formula that when you multiply the formula, it multiplies the business? And then the second part, is it saleable? Meaning, are you required for the business to succeed? I'm doing this show right now. I'm not getting paid a dime. In fact, I pay money to do this show. It costs me money to do the show on a daily basis. I can afford it though. I've got other revenue coming in from other sources. So even though it takes a bit of a time to establish a broadcast like this, I can do it because I'm eating chickens while I'm hunting this elephant of broadcast success. So I pray, Emily, that helped to answer your question. Marcus Reed asks, how do successful businesses maintain a competitive edge in a saturated market? I have been running a local coffee shop for 5 years. I'm facing increased competition from big chains, new artisan coffee shops, and I'm looking for unique strategies to stand out without compromising my values. Marcus, one of the things that I tell people is, you've got to figure out, as I was talking about at the top of the show, you've got to figure out what is your unique selling proposition. What is your unique marketing proposition? Yes, I would agree. Lots of coffee shops popping up, lots of big chains like Starbucks or artisan coffee shops popping up. And the thing that you want to take a look at is, the big ones are big for a reason. They scaled. I saw an article yesterday that Starbucks is having a lot of challenges. They're losing money right now. And there's a lot of reasons for that. In due respect, they're woke as heck. Starbucks and its owner, they're woke as all get out. And I think they don't realize the majority of the population is not. We don't want to see used needles from drug addicts in the bathroom when we go into Starbucks. I don't care if you put a disposal unit on the wall where people can drop their used needles. I don't want people thinking the bathroom where I'm having my coffee is a good place to be shooting up. That's a fact. Do I have sympathy for addicts? I do. Do I want them hanging out in the bathroom where my kid and I are grabbing a morning snack? I don't. Call me whatever you want to call me. Just the fact of the matter is, rather than put up a box to help them do more drugs, I'd rather help them not do drugs. The other thing, though, is that I believe everything shifts and everything is cyclical. And yes, Starbucks got on a trend where they said, hey, we're going to take what is normally a 50-cent cup of coffee. We're gonna create, rather than waiters or waitresses or people taking care of the counter, we're going to create baristas. We're going to make it a very Italiano experience as far as the coffee is concerned. We're going to give our coffee grande and venti and smale names to make people think they're exotic when it's really small, medium, and large on the coffee. And so, how do you combat that? Number one, you cannot compete on prices. You cannot. You can only compete on a unique marketing proposition. And so, I have a concept for a coffee store that I think would do really, really, really well. Starbucks became bigger by making Starbucks the place where people socialized, where people came in, they sat down with their laptop, they hung out at the tables, other people hung out, and nursed their latte for 2 hours so they could be in that environment because they didn't want to work at home. So how do we take it one step further? Well, part of the challenge is a lot of people have taken to hanging out at Starbucks. And unfortunately, many of them are hanging out there because they're simply unemployed. They're not really entrepreneurs. They're just looking for a lazy way to justify hanging out. So they bring their laptop, their iPad, and they sit there and sip their coffee because it makes them feel better about themselves. So here's my thought: either have business and personal development videos running at your coffee shop so it becomes a better place, or arrange very specific networking parties that have a very specific format. Every day at 6 a.m., this networking group gets together. If you get there between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m., we're going to give you a free coffee, a free latte, whatever it is. I don't care what it is. The hard cost on that latte that you sell for $12, the hard cost with labor and rent and everything included, is probably less than 20% of the overall retail cost of that unit. So you could give everybody a coupon when they came in the morning to that business networking event. You could give them a coupon to get a free coffee, and I betcha they're going to buy a Danish. I betcha they're going to buy a breakfast sandwich, or I betcha they're going to have a second latte, almost guaranteed. So all things being equal, why would they choose you over Starbucks? Why would they choose you over some artisan coffee shop? The reason they would choose you is your store. Now they can even more justify, in fact, even rightfully so, claim that they're making their lives and their business better because they're watching motivational business development videos and networking with other people that are doing the same. So how great is that? So the short answer to your question, Marcus, how do you compete with the big shops or the little shops, is you don't. You find your unique marketing proposition. And in fact, a name just occurred to me. What do you call your coffee shop? In the Black. In the Black Coffee Shop, where we teach entrepreneurs how to be in the black. In fact, don't even use any of my advice. I'm about to launch a coffee shop called In the Black. So disregard everything I just said. Laura Simmons owns a successful online craft supply store, wants to expand her business, not sure how to scale without losing the quality and personal touch her customers love. Her question is, what are the most effective strategies for scaling a small business? Good question. And I was just talking about that scalability and saleability. How do you scale? You scale through systems. That's how you scale a business. You figure out standard operating procedures and you make sure that everybody else understands them too. I don't care whether you're McDonald's or In-N-Out Burgers or a local online craft supply store. You've got to figure out what is it that your consumer wants that is a part of the experience, because people will always pay more for a better experience. I have a friend of mine. She is a scrapbooker. Yeah, it's a real thing. She's a scrapbooker. I didn't know that scrapping, as they call it, scrapping is a multi-billion dollar a year industry. A multi-billion dollar a year industry. Why is that? Because there's a whole lot of people that like to scrapbook. And it's not just that, like the olden days where you and I would hide in our bedroom and, put the wrapper from our ice cream from our first date as a kid in this book so we have something to remember it by. Scrapping is this thing where a lot of people, primarily women, get together and it's a social experience. So my friend, my student, came up with this idea of selling crowns to the women that were scrapbooking together. and came up with an entire social group called Scrapbook Divas. So all the divas wear their little tiaras. They get together and they're a member of this club, this organization. So the question I have back to you, Laura, how do you scale your small business? Is you take it beyond the business and you make it a community. You make it a place where, all things being equal, people can buy their book or their scissor or their paper or whatever it is they're using to scrapbook. They can buy that anywhere, but they can't buy the culture anywhere. They can't buy the social community anywhere. So how do you do that? You have regular get-togethers. You have Thursday family tree night where everybody gets together either in person or on a Zoom remotely like this. And you talk about, family, you talk about the scrapbook and what are you doing that's cool, and you show off, give everybody an opportunity to shine. You come up with different events. The best retailers on the planet have a special going on every single day. Think Taco Tuesday. Think, think the restaurant that has White Wine Wednesday. And now you're on the right track. So how can you create brands that have different elements that fit different days? The whole idea of Valentine's Day was created 100% to sell greeting cards. The whole idea behind many holidays was simply a commercial means of selling more product. Black Friday, Cyber Monday, completely fabricated holidays to do what? Go buy things. So if there can be a holiday that everybody goes nuts just to buy things, then Lord knows there can be an online craft day, and you're the one that's going to start it. So Laura, Marcus, and Emily, thanks so much for your questions. If you've got a question you'd like to ask me and you don't want to get on the air, you want to just send it in to support@certaintyinc.com, and I'll be sure to get you on the air too. Hey, I'm Marshall Silver. It's been a phenomenal show. You are totally loved. Have an awesome weekend. Happy Mother's Day. And if you are not yet a mother, let me say happy day to you. And if you are in a relationship and you don't have any babies, well, thank you so much for being the child of a mother. Happy Mother's Day, everybody. God bless. I'll see you next week. Bye for now. Hey there, moguls. It's me, Marshall Silver, your personal millionaire maker. Getting very excited about my brand new show coming up 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. I'm going to broadcast live to you. I'm going to give you content, information, emotional, mental, physical, and even spiritual power. I'll also invite some of my cool multi-millionaire and billionaire friends onto the show to give you more direction, more advice for having it all. All the knowledge to get everything you want and so much more. All you got to do is log in to the show to get information coming to you live from the bunker right here at Studio Money. So stay tuned.